Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope that you had a fun weekend with what did we have? We had the solstice, we had the full moon. I think there was something else, I really don't know. But it was a very interesting weekend in terms of energy dynamics and shifts. And it looks like the new timeline is starting to come into focus, at least for me personally here on the micro. It looked like, there's like a collective manifestation in my community in terms of everyone has the same desire that we wish there were more things to do, basically. And suddenly, all of the sudden, there's more things to do. And they're very much so in alignment with what everybody's been seeking and hoping for. So it just kind of looked like we almost got like a taste or a preview or a glimpse of that this weekend. So let me know in the comments if you've noticed anything similar, right? If you had any kind of experience this weekend where, something new was added to your map, right? I think that's what I was saying in the last reading, that it almost feels like one of those dreams where you discover that there's another room in your house that you didn't even know existed, right? That was how this weekend felt for me. So let's jump into the reading. So the archetype that we're dealing with is the Fool, and the role we're being called to play is the Page of Wands. So this Fool from the Vox Arcana deck is very interesting. So you can see that his feet are not on the ground, right? So we're not exactly in like a grounded experience right now. But if you remember in the last reading I was talking about, we're in the process of doing the flip, right? It feels like as we transition from the old to the new, that everything in the new is effectively upside down, inside out, and backwards in relationship to everything that we're leaving, right? Because the place that we were leaving was such an illusion, so distorted, et cetera, that getting to truth is like doing a tumble almost. And the process of going from the old to the new requires that we kind of pass through the fear threshold, right? So the fear threshold is like the wall, I guess the firewall really, between timelines. And what I'm loving about this Fool card is that I almost feel like he's on top of the wall. Like if this is the wall, he's in the process of jumping over it, right? So that's why it might not feel like a grounded experience here, but the card on the bottom of the deck, the Eight of Swords, this Eight of Swords from the Vox Arcana, you can see her blindfold is off, right? So typically the Eight of Swords talks to me about having to navigate without a map, without data. But in this case, it's like finally seeing the landscape around you, right? That it's like as we go up and over this wall, we can actually see what it is that we're navigating, even though what we're seeing is moving as we move, right? I'm almost thinking, is it Harry Potter where like the staircases change as they're walking? Something like that, that it's like as we're moving, everything's kind of moving around us, but at least we can actually see at this point. And one thing that I want to point out is that it's like if we're on top of the wall, right, we can see the new and the old, right? So it's like kind of keeping that in mind, right? That just because you can still see the old doesn't mean that you're stuck in it, right? And it's like I really want to point out with this Fool card that he has this little cat and this little dog that are clinging to him, right? And this to me is talking to me about the fractals that we're integrating that I was talking about in the last reading, right? Pulling ourselves through the mirror, that it's like no fractal is being left behind, right? So these things are getting integrated whether they like it or not. They're coming kicking and screaming. And I think it's talking to all of us about the process that it's like we're being dragged along to the new earth, kicking and screaming whether we like it or not. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're in any sort of mindset of am I doing enough or blah blah blah, it's like the universe is like absolutely. It's like you're probably honestly doing more than you even need to, is kind of what this card tells me. But the other thing I want to point out about it is that you can see all of these keys that are basically, I guess, falling out of his purse here, but like raining down around him. And what this is talking to me about is all of the synchronicity that's happening right now that is unlocking so many mysteries. I've encountered so many people recently that have told me, if you're familiar with the concept of never ending story, I think it's the movie The Never Ending Story, where the kid at some point finds a book that is the story of his life. And as he reads this book or writes the book, the story keeps continuing or something like that. But I've encountered so many people who have told me that they found a book that has told them the story of their life. And as they read this book, it's unlocking all of the mysteries of everything that they went through, the quote unquote initiations that we've had to go through to unlock these different aspects of ourself and integrate these different aspects of ourself, right? So that's really what I'm seeing is like almost like synchronicity, download, upload, overwhelm. I don't know how to explain it, but because there's a download aspect to it, but what's interesting about all of the cards on the table right now is that it's like everything is going up. I'm seeing everything right now going up. And typically when we think about, I don't know, the process that we're in, we think about the energy that's coming in, right? We think of integration and downloads and receiving information. But right now it looks like we are transmitting and uploading. And I think it has to do with like contract renegotiation or contract renewal or something like that, where we're being called or encouraged to fine tune the manifestation as we move through it, right? Because it's like we're it's the Goldilocks phenomena, right? We're being called to let the universe know if something is too cold, too hot, just right, whatever it may be. And so, for example, you know, with everything that I experienced this weekend, it's kind of like the universe saying, so what did you think about that? What would you change? Right? What did you love? What did you hate? I really think that the universe is like beta testing these different synchronicities from us so that we can, again, kind of perfect it. Because, again, I think a lot of our manifestation has been done in a place of fight or flight survival. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just my expression is you probably didn't do the bulk of your manifestation work while you were sitting on the beach sipping a pina colada, right? It was probably during the darkest hour of the dark night that you were screaming at the sky at 3 a.m. that you did the most of your, that's when I did mine at least, right? And I'm seeing that here with the Page of Wands, right? So the Page of Wands talks about like bold, declarative affirmations, right? Declaring your intent, and usually vocally, right? It depicts vocalization. And that's because it's like the voice is the threshold between the astral and the 3D, right? Because wands are imagination, it's inspiration, it's potential, it's this could be, and I wish and I desire. But the voice, or excuse me, well, that's what wands represent. And the voice is the thing that takes all of that abstract, intangible potentiality and turns it into form, right? It gives it form and order and births it into the universe, right? So that's, again, all of this like birth energy that I'm kind of seeing on the table here. I'll get into that more so in a minute. But what's really interesting about this particular Page of Wands is that it depicts the salamander. And typically, the Rider-Waite King of Wands has a little salamander on it. But the story of the salamander is that back in the day, alchemists believed that if you kept a fire burning for 7 days consistently, that on the seventh day of creation, a salamander would be born. So it represents something that is literally born out of a manifestation of fire, right? So it's something that's born. If we want to talk about fire as the imagination, right? It's like if you held something in your imagination for 7 days, if you held the vision for 7 days, on the seventh day, it would just like jump out of the fire fully formed or something like that. And I think so there is a bit of like a duality to what I'm seeing here, that it's like on one hand it's speaking to the fact that we have gestated these imaginations in our mind's eye. Gestated these imaginations, does that make sense? Gestated these dreams, I guess, in our mind's eye, and they're in the process of springing to life. But it's also, I think, calling upon us to affirm that yes, we want that, or again, it's Goldilocks, right? So hotter, colder, dimmer, brighter, whatever. So, for example, right, my friends and I loved everything that we experienced this weekend. But of course, if we're not short on anything, it's opinions. And everybody had their opinion, right? So it's like putting those affirmations out there where it's like, I love it, but The playlist could have, there could have been more this, there could have been more that. Not that I'm complaining, I'm still grateful, but, and the universe is hearing that, right? And I think my theory is that, I'm sure the universe, the home team, whatever you want to call it, the construct would have loved to help us manifest what we actually wanted this entire, duration of our experience. But things were so upside down and backwards that it didn't know who's who in the zoo. It didn't understand our language, right? Because 9 times out of 10, if you want peace, what you would have said is, I don't want war. So the only key word it hears is war, war, war. So what you manifest is a war you don't want, as opposed to the peace that you have, right? And it's basically the Tower of Babel mythos, right? We're all just down here babbling, and the universe is the one that can't understand us, right? We can barely understand each other. We can barely understand ourselves half the time, right? But the universe couldn't understand us because we were conditioned to manifest against ourselves, because that's how our language works. It's very negative, right? How many times does somebody tell you something wonderful that's happened and your response is, no way, get out, stop it? Is any of that affirmative? No. Do we mean it with ill intent? No. It's like we don't even realize what we're doing half the time, but we're blocking our own blessings and the blessings of other people. So I think we finally gotten to a point where the universe kind of gets it, right? It's still trying to figure it out, but it's like, I don't think language is the hindrance it used to be. Intention is really more important. But as we reverse the babble, I do think we're still being called to, again, recalibrate our manifestations, just because so many of them were gestated in a place of fight or flight survival, because that makes sense, right? So when you're in fight or flight survival, you are primarily concerned with manifesting safety. But safety is one of those dualistic things that kind of requires a threat to exist, right? Because it's almost like healers manifest sick people, so safety is like the other end of a threat. But it's like, but what is a word that means neither of those things, right? It's like we don't really have that in our language. So this again is really just encouraging you to kind of get into your selective Goldilocks energy. And it says, if you could have your cake and eat it too, what would it taste like? What would the filling be? What's the icing? What color is the icing? For me, it's a Carvel's ice cream cake, but that's my own business. Maybe for you, it's red velvet. Go off. Now, getting into the 3 major arcanas on the table. So again, the bottom of the deck was this 8 of Swords that's talking to me about finally seeing what we're up against. Even though it's, again, like the Harry Potter analogy, I had to re-record this because, as usual, I record it 10 times, but it was, again, giving me the energy of the Harry Potter analogy, where how in the school the staircases move, right? So I feel like as we cross over this wall, everything is still in flux, but at least we can kind of see what we're up against. And I think it's moving in response to us, right? So that's kind of going back to this name it, claim it, affirm it kind of thing. So what's interesting is the first card out on the table here is the 3 of Cups. And if you saw the last reading, Pulling Yourself Through the Mirror, that was all about the 3 of Pentacles. So I pulled that out of the deck just to show it as a reference. So in the last reading, this was talking to me about the split and the new earth, right? So in Dolores Cannon's New Earth, it talks about kind of moving from the old to the new. But let me say this again. So the way that I'm seeing this is as the two polarized realities. Geez Louise, I can't talk. It's that language thing, right? Language is just going out the door. I wish I could just beam this into people's minds. It would be so much easier. But so this was talking to me about the polarized realities, right? So we don't want to be in either of the polarized realities. We want to be in the quantum reality, which needs to be the fully integrated version of the two. So that's what I was talking about in terms of the fractal integration, right? The illusions from these realms are not coming. The only thing that is coming is, the true spirit and essence that needs to be extracted and distilled from those realms, right? But the rest, what you could call like the crude matter, is being left behind. But the essence, the spirit, us, that's being pulled into this new realm. And again, this kind of looks to me like a distillation process. So in the last reading, it was talking about this kind of like gestation that I was seeing. But here, with the 3 of Cups, you can see that it's like the gate has opened, right? It's almost like the birthing process has begun. But in 4 of the cards that are on the table right now, the Fool, the Ace of Pentacles, which is coming next, that Page of Wands, and then back to this Three of Cups, everything is going up, right? So that's where I'm seeing like the upload aspect of this, where it's like, again, I typically think of things in terms of coming in or like the energy that's coming towards us, but it's like, I'm not seeing anything come towards us. It's like everything is going up towards something else. So we're really the ones that are making the big moves here, right? And the universe is really just responding to that. Again, it's like Siri or Alexa, right? Siri and Alexa don't do anything. They respond to a command, right? You would never say, hey Siri, can I bother you? If you're busy, it's okay. You would never say that to Siri. You'd never pray to Siri and say, Siri, if you find me worthy, could you please Google a recipe for chicken parmesan? It's never going to work like that. It's going to be, hey Siri, what time is it? Period. Done. Siri, play the last Bruce Springsteen album, and it just happens, right? Siri, there's no moods. So that's how the construct is supposed to work as well, right? It's supposed to just be call and response. And so this thing is being uploaded, and because it's cups, it's like, cups talk to me right now about identity. So one thing that I think we've been recalibrating, and this has been coming up in all of the sand readings, if you've seen them, at least in the last month, was like this recalibration of identity, right? Of like trying on all of these different masks and looks and roles, and finally distilling it down to your true self, right? Because there was one reading where she was talking about, you go through all of these different characters and you finally discover that one commonality that was there in all of it, which was you, and that is your authenticity, right? So it's like the authentic self is the thing that's being birthed. And this is something that's come up in readings for me for like the last 2 years in terms of like public readings or readings that I've done for people in the 3D, right? Where they were about to play the role of themselves for the first time ever, right? It's like we've played so many roles. We've been so many different things. A lot of us have been, whatever. We've played so many roles. This is the first time we're ever actually playing ourselves. And it might be the most challenging role of them all because there's no, who do you understudy, right? If I'm supposed to be myself, I can't understudy somebody else. But I think most of us, I think humans are kind of like parrots without feathers in a type of way, where all we really do is mimic, right? So we learn who we are through other people. And that's why things like media can be so dangerous, because it's like, if you're trying to learn who you are through Kim Kardashian, you're not going to learn much. But you have to try to find some sort of point of reference that you can attach to, right? So we've explored everything. And in that everything, there's been that one consistent piece that is you. It's the unicorn, but it's the weirdest and most challenging role to play because it's going back to that other sand reading, right? Writing a character that you have no point of reference for, right? How could you even write a character in a story that's unlike anything you've ever seen or known or whatever, right? Because it's like there's nothing new under the sun. But we, as our true selves, are a character that we don't have a point of reference for, which is such an interesting thought, right? But then the next card on the table is this Ace of Pentacles, right? And this is talking to me about cashing in the chips, right? And it reminds me of the card from the last reading that looked like the mirror, where it was the Two of Cups, right? And it was the woman that was pouring her cup into the mirror, and then her reflection was basically pouring the cup back into her, right? So that was talking to me about the merger. But now it's like that thing has crystallized, or it's complete, even though it looks like this fool, right? It's like it's a little chaotic, but everything is attached, right? This cat and dog are like clinging to the true self, so to speak. All of the little fractals are being pulled in together, and it's being passed up to the divine. But it's interesting because, again, it's another one of those quantum perspective things that it's like, as we pass it up to the divine, it's like the divine is passing it down to us, right? So it is like a simultaneous upload download. But this is really going back to like a reading that it was one of the last readings I did almost 2 years ago before I shut the channel down, which was about basically like we had like a time capsule inside of us that had whatever whatever it was that was for the new earth that could only activate in the new earth, and it was being held in a time capsule, because if it was opened in the old space, in the underworld space, we would have contaminated it. We would have projected upon it. And it's like it couldn't activate until it was in this space, because now it's safe to play with, so to speak. And that goes back to the Fool card energy that I was talking about, where all of these different keys are now dropping in, keys that were in the Fool's bag, right? So it's like as we do this standing leap over the firewall, all of these keys are kind of falling out of the bag and now synchronistically kind of landing in our lap, right? And that's all of the crazy synchronicities that have been happening in the last month, especially through like social media, right? How many, let me know in the comments, like, have you discovered crazy things via the social media algorithm that have like unlocked parts of your journey for you? Like I was saying, the never ending story, like I'm hearing about people that are finding books that are telling them their life story and explaining the initiations that we've all been through. And I've had so many profound moments too, where like childhood things have unlocked in terms of explaining my own patterns and algorithms, where like I'll just give this example where in preschool, I remember I had a best friend, and my best friend's name was Graham. And every day we go to preschool, and that was just my routine. It was like that was my friend, and we would go on the swings together, whatever it was, my best friend. One day, a new kid came to school, and he became Graham's best friend, just kind of like bullied his way into Graham's life. I don't know where this person came from, but this kid was a mean kid, and he was a big kid, and he didn't want nothing to do with me. And because of that, he encouraged Graham to bully me. And that became like a trauma that echoed throughout my life, where it was like I would have the best friend, and then another friend would show up and basically like bully that friend away from me or something like that. And so it created this pattern of whatever that, I just had that expectation, yada yada. But the memory, it was always there, but the key did not drop in until like a week or two ago. I didn't remember any of that. And I mean, so many different things about dreams that I had as a kid. There was a really interesting experience I had right after the eclipse where I connected with a really, really powerful medium, light worker, exorcist. Her name is Kelly Dillon. Actually, you can find her on YouTube and Instagram and all of that. She's a media figure. And I connected with her through a mutual friend, and it turned out that she was from the same town as me growing up in Bumble, New Jersey. And we scheduled a call to talk to each other. And like 5 minutes before that call, I had a wave of dreams that I had as a child come back to me. And all of the dreams were explained. And it was like these keys from the Fool, right? Wherever it went, I lost the Fool. There he is. So that's my question. Is that happening to you as well? Is it like this Eight of Swords, where you finally have the ability to take the blindfold off, right? The Harry Potter stairs are still moving, but at least you can see them, right? And I even think we have the anti-gravity moon boots, where it's like even if the stairs are upside down, we can still walk on them at this point. It's crazy. But this data transfer or whatever is happening. I don't know if I said those words in the last collective, but data transfer is really what it feels like, as if different timelines or different dimensions are, maybe I should start that sentence differently. Timeline hopping might be the act of transferring your consciousness from one timeline to another, or one dimension to another. And the only real difference is that your consciousness is no longer occupying that other dimension of reality, right? And that's like the hop that we do. So collectively, it's like we must be moving our consciousness to a new space, I guess. But it's like the meeting point is the true self, right? Because it's like the intersection of all of those timelines which would be all of the different roles that we have played or haven't played or could have played or might play. It's like there's an intersection point where all of those things cross, and that is the true self. And I almost feel like what's happening right now is like the visual that I get is it's as if us and all of our fractals are meeting at an airport, right? Like everybody's got their flight, they're all coming in, and we're all just in the process of like meeting at the baggage claim or something like that. Right? Shout out if you've had a lot of baggage to claim in the last couple of weeks and months. And then the final card in the sequence here is the Ten of Pentacles, which is the save point in the game, right? When you hit the Ten of Pentacles, excuse me, or the Scent of Pentacles. Oh, that's interesting. Because I was talking about the essence, right? And there's something about perfume and memory and all. Well, I'll get back to that. I don't want to. The Ten of Pentacles is the save point in the game, and that's where it feels like this process is heading to. But I honestly want to say that that's. Well, okay, so I almost want to word that differently because to say that it's the save point in the game implies that things are not saved yet. But I wholeheartedly believe that the eclipse was a save point. But we didn't start the new level yet. So it's almost like we're between levels. And maybe it's a matter of, I don't know if this happens in video games, but like maybe you can change characters between levels, right? Like maybe on the last level you wore a particular outfit and carried a particular tool, but on the next level you change your look or you change your costume, or it's like something like that. So that's what I think is about to crystallize. And like prediction-ish, I feel like I keep getting make it through July. That's been the mantra in my head for the last couple of months. Is like just make it through July. July is the save point. That something happens between the transition from Cancer season to Leo season. So that's like the last 10 days. Well, I guess like July 10th through the 20th, and then maybe the 20th through 30th. It's like that's always the flux point for me. So I'm paying very close attention to that as best as I can. And I think that's about it in terms of what I have on the table, but let me pull a couple oracles and see if I can pull anything else out here. I'm going to pull a Lemurian oracle. Ooh. It says third eye chakra, pineal perspective. Connect with your third eye and transcend what you understand with your mind. Okay, that's interesting because that goes back to the idea of reversing the Tower of Babel kind of energy. Like I said, I've recorded this a couple of times, so I don't know if I included it this time, but I feel like we are in the process of reversing the Tower of Babel energy, which at one point hindered the Matrix's ability to manifest for us because our language is so upside down and backwards. So if you want peace, the last thing you want to say is, I don't want war, because all you're going to wind up manifesting is a war you don't want. So you have to say, I have peace if you want peace. You know what I mean? But I think, again, the Babel thing has been or is being reversed so that intention and feeling kind of supersede it. And this is reminding me of the concept of green language. And I've been down a green language rabbit hole, and it's giving me if you know the expression, green is near to the end of the moon, that's what it comes to. So that's what I'm thinking about. It says, connect with your third eye and transcend what you understand with your mind. Discover a deeper inner knowing through the interconnected web of all this is and has been. You can tune into this wisdom at will, as and when you wish to. This wisdom is ancient yet pioneering. It is the creator of the free will we choose to weave from moment to moment. What is that? It is the creator of the free will we choose to weave from moment to moment. Be the observant witness. Allow the transcendence of duality without judgment. Be mindful. Listen and allow your unfurling intuition to unravel the paradoxes of reality. You know what's interesting about this card in terms of language, and I was talking about green language and the Babel thing. I'm convinced, I've never looked into it, but I'm convinced that this deck was not written in English, but that it was translated into English because it's always difficult for me to read. And the language is clunky, but it's beautiful. So it's like I'm willing to push through it because I know there's some message in there. But ultimately, right, it's like it was translated from light language. I guess you could say that, right? Because it's supposed to be this Lemurian kind of vibe, whatever that means. So there's something, it's almost like I want to emphasize that more so than anything in terms of the transcendence, is that there's something going on with language where it's becoming either obsolete or irrelevant or whatever. Not to say throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I don't think it's a ball and chain anymore. It's not an obstacle. And we're being encouraged to perfect it, I think, but we're also being encouraged to lean into the concept of the green language. So that's, if anyone is in the mood for a homework assignment, I hate homework, but I love a rabbit hole. So if you're in the mood for a rabbit hole, green language or the language of the birds, there's something there in terms of what we're in the process of learning between now and whenever the next level starts, right? So if like between the eclipse and the next level, there's this holding phase that we're in, I think that has something to do with what we're acquiring right now. Maybe it's different for everybody, right? I don't want to tell you what to do, but we're the message that I keep getting is that we're in the midst of a spontaneous evolution or an evolutionary jump. How, like, I guess species evolve at some point, right? And it's like how does that happen? But I guess there's an anecdote that wants to come in, but I'm not sure what it is. But it's kind of like the 100th monkey thing where the monkeys on one island learned how to wash their coconuts, and then all the monkeys learned how to wash their coconuts. That sounds like a euphemism, but you know what I'm saying. But there was something else that I had heard recently that was very similar to that, but it was actually scientifically proven. Because I know the 100th monkey theory is thought to be a fake story or something like that. But there was something recently that was kind of the same idea in terms of like scientists have witnessed something in the animal kingdom where some sort of animal is evolving. I know that they've noticed recently that monkeys are starting to decorate themselves with like braided grass that they're turning into jewelry, basically. Um, but I can't remember what the other thing is. Well, the killer whales, right, off the coast of the Iberian Peninsula that have evolved to hunt ships, right? But I guess if we go back to Moby Dick, I guess new dogs are learning old tricks, right? So something like that. But the green language would technically be us new dogs learning an old trick, right? Because allegedly, this is what the ancestors used to be able to do all the time. They could understand what the birds were saying. They could understand what the clouds were saying, right? They could understand synchronicity, right? Synchronicity is the language of the universe. That's the ultimate language, right? That's the only way that the universe seems to actually be able to communicate to us is through poetry, through synchronicity, right? Poetry is the language of God. So that's why I love tarot, because in my opinion, tarot works because it's controlled synchronicity, right? The universe is like doing everything it can to communicate with us, but it's limited, right? It has to use synchronistic means. So it'll use your news feed, it'll use conversations and signs on the street, but still it's somewhat limited. So if you sit down with something that has a degree of designated meaning for you, the universe is like, let's roll with it, right? But it doesn't matter what you use. You can use a stack of Polaroids, you can use a stack of index cards that you made, you could use a pile of coins, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like the universe literally does not care. I always say the cards have no ego. That's you, right? So it's encouraging us to transcend language. And I mean, I guess this is technically a form of green language, right? Maybe it is because it's all symbolic. It's all quantum, it's metaphorical, it's not binary, right? Nothing that I've pulled out of these cards right now can be summed up by what's in the book, right? I'll say that in terms of Tarot 101. If you want to know how to be a tarot reader, I'll tell you in 30 seconds. Throw out the book. it means nothing in terms of one day there was a reading that I was doing for a client and I pulled out the Three of Swords, and for whatever reason I got an image of Mel Gibson from Braveheart in my head, right, with the paint on his face and whatever. And I think I've told the story, but I'm telling it again. And I told them that. I was like, Three of Swords, Mel Gibson, Braveheart, I don't know what it means. He jumped out of his chair, and it turned out he had just proposed to his fiancee in Scotland wearing a full kilt, and now they're having a Braveheart themed wedding. I don't know that, right? That doesn't make any sense to me, but the reading's not for me, right? It's for Mr. Braveheart or whatever. So am I going to write a tarot book that says Three of Swords is your Braveheart energy? No, because that's irrelevant, right? So it's like spirit knows what you know and it knows what you don't know. And the cards are never, ever trying to stump you. The synchronicity is not trying to stump you, whether it's out in the universe or here on the deck. So kind of know that in terms of reading, right? It's like it means what it means to you. And again, it's like spirit is not trying to stump you. The cards have no ego. They're not sitting there and saying, really? They're going to pull out the cards and they haven't read the book cover to cover? Who do they think they are? Who told them that they could read tarot? Nobody ever told me that I could read tarot. Nobody ever told me I could do anything. And I just decided to do it, right? So as soon as you start doing it, it happens. And that was another thing that I had to learn on my journey, right? Because when I started this back in 2012-ish, anyone that you would find that was a guru was like, well, I come from a lineage of witches from back in the day, and Michael descended from a cloud one day and told me, and I'm sorry to use the offensive voice, but it's like, it angers me that people spiritually gatekeep like that. Because I thought for a while that it was like, okay, well, why don't Michael come down on a cloud for me? I'm like, did I not say enough Hail Marys? I don't get it. No, it was all BS and nonsense the entire time. They were just spiritually gatekeeping because they don't want you putting them out of business. My goal is that eventually I have no viewership because y'all do this on your own. Like, that is the ultimate goal of this, is that we're all just so psychic that we don't need each other anymore. We could just move on and have fun. So that's today's message. I love you all. I hope it was good. If you're interested in a private reading of your own, those have been very, very fun for me. Especially, I love this demographic because in the 3D, everybody asks me if they should buy a new house. And the answer is always, if you're fun, yes. If you're not fun, please don't move here. But you guys are fun, so I do hope you move here. And I hope I see you at the next collective reading. See you guys later. Bye.